wow, that Singapore Grand Prix was an amazing race, wasn't it? Probably the best race of the season, you could probably argue. Up there with the likes of Zandvoort, Monza, and it's nice the fact that we've come back from this summer break and we've had 3 amazing Grand Prix. Of course, Sainz takes his second race victory of his career and breaks Max Verstappen's great run of 10 race victories in a row. Of course, under the lights, the Formula 1 cars looks fabulous under the lights, and what a way for Ferrari to be the team that breaks that streak that Red Bull currently have. And it was an amazing race. Of course, the Red Bulls, we knew they wouldn't be at the front. Of course, qualifying P11 and P13. So it was always going to be a struggle, especially around Singapore. And we had the 2 Ferraris, we had the McLaren of Lando Norris, and then the 2 Mercedes there as well, we was unsure who was going to pick up the podium places. Of course, there was little different moments where we had the virtual safety car, we had the actual safety car as well, throwing up a little bits and different elements during the race, and it made for a really good one. So I'm going to get into some details of the race. I'm going to do some little run through of little key bits of the race, and I'll do a breakdown of some of the teams and the drivers, and we'll come to a conclusion about this race that we just had. First of all, I want to talk about Lance Stroll, his incident on Saturday qualifying in Q1, where he goes into the last corner, gets on the curb, tries to catch the car, and he's straight into the barrier. The thing with that crash as well, that one is gonna hurt, isn't it? He's gonna run about 150 miles an hour straight into the barrier. It's not like there's grass, there's any gravel on the side of the track to help slow him down. Is literally, he's got on the curb, he tried to catch the car, and bang, straight into that barrier. So that is quite a sore one, but I think that is a great testament to the safety that we have developed in Formula 1 over the last couple of years. Of course, we have the heavier cars, but we have heavier cars to help with safety. And it's great to see him get out of the car fine. Of course, he couldn't compete in the Singapore Grand Prix, which is unfortunate. But the thing I'm just happy to see is him out of the car, and hopefully he's ready to compete in Japan. So obviously, Sainz was on the pole, and it was really interesting to see Leclerc start on the softs. Obviously, they wanted to get that jump on George Russell to have a 1-2, and that way they can properly control the race and come home with a 1-2. Obviously, anyone's best chance to win a race is this race, with Red Bull being a bit far off, which was a shock. It's a shock, but in reality, when you actually look at the track characteristics and the strengths of that Red Bull car, it did really suit the Ferraris, and in hindsight, it was always going to struggle Red Bull. Of course, Ferrari got a really good power unit, really good on the brakes. They can go straight into the 90-degree corners, very nimble car, and just get on the throttle really well on that acceleration. And their car works really well around there. Of course, we look at Baku when Charles Leclerc got the pole, they were really quick around there, but it was just that long straight that Red Bull was able to use that DRS and get past the Ferrari of Charles Leclerc. But yeah, so Charles Leclerc got the jump on George Russell. Russell had a really questionable start because he lost the position to Charles Leclerc, obviously on the soft tyres. Hamilton had a really good start as well in P5, Lando Norris in P4. Lewis got ahead of Lando Norris, tries to go up the outside of George Russell into turn 2. Has to go off the track to avoid action and to avoid any damage to his car, and he has to go off to the skate road. And in the end, he has to give the pace back to George Russell, which I think is fair. But the one to Norris, I'm not too sure about because he was already ahead. Maybe he wasn't really committed to the corner, and he did definitely brake late, later than Lewis normally does. Of course, he's last of the late breakers, and he had to give the pace back to Lando Norris instead. I still do question that, giving the pace back to Lando Norris, but I do understand it at the same time. And then the race was kind of unfolding from there. Sainz really controlling the gap to Charles Leclerc and really doing really well. Obviously, Leclerc on the soft compound tyres, he's obviously going to be a bit quicker, wanting to use those tyres a lot, but Sainz did really well to kind of manage that gap, and he said on the radio that he could drive at that pace all day, and he definitely could. He was absolutely brilliant today. yesterday was Carlos Sainz. And then we had that crash from Logan Sargent where he just goes straight into the barrier. What was it? Turn 8. Takes his front wing off, and that means a safety car's brought out with some debris left on the track. Sargent's floor was absolutely probably wrecked. I haven't seen any images of the floor, but I can imagine that floor was absolutely nasty with that front wing just trapped underneath the floor. And from there, he obviously had a struggle of a race, and that caused a knock-on effect. Everyone basically just went into the pits, and Sainz obviously had a good start, but they had a double stack of Ferrari. They double stacked at Mercedes as well, and quite a few of the other teams as well. But that means with Leclerc, he had to be held up. He had to be held up with Lewis because Lewis got compromised in the pits as well, with the double stack with Russell being ahead. So Charles Leclerc lost a couple of positions. He lost from basically second all the way down to fourth, losing position to Norris and George Russell, being ahead of Cyril Lewis. And from that point, you looked at that and go, Charles Leclerc is going to probably struggle to finish on the podium now, and that's kind of where his day kind of started to end. And I think preferably if he was Ferrari, I think you just didn't want that safety car at all. You wanted to come home with the P1 and 2 because they're looking comfortable, and I think from that Sainz would have still won. Leclerc would have still got second, and it would have been all good. But obviously, we don't know how Norris would have reacted, Russell, Hamilton would have reacted to that. So we was always going to be in for a really good race in terms of strategy. Of course, track position is so crucial, so anyone getting a little undercut. But of course, it's really hard to pit because the gaps between everyone was so close. If Sainz would have pitted, he would have come out near enough last, and you just get stuck in traffic. So that was a really interesting element, and the aim basically was to go as long as they could on those medium tyres, or in the case for Leclerc, a soft tyre, and just see what happens because they just couldn't take the risk to pit. And of course, that safety car came at the perfect time for everyone else, apart from the Red Bulls. Of course, they started on the hard compound tyres. They were just basically hoping to go as long into the race as possible on those hard tyres, and then hope for a safety car, and hope for a little gap, and they could just charge through on the soft or the medium compound tyres. So it really came out at the wrong time from Red Bull. And of course, it's like a no-brainer, just stay out on those hard tyres because then you have to go so long on the medium tyres. Of course, Verstappen got up into second place, Perez got up into fourth place in the end as well. And basically, from then they went backwards. Of course, not having the strongest car this weekend, and others around them like Sainz, the Ferraris, the Norris, Mercedes, just having better tyres than them as well, more fresher tyres. So they're just able to dispatch them really quickly, which is really strange to think that they can dispatch over a Red Bull so quickly when all year Red Bull have been so quick. But during that pit stop incidents and things like that, Fernando Alonso had his own incident of himself going into the pit lane, going over and coming back in. Of course, that is deemed dangerous by the FIA and in the rules, and rightfully so. He received a 5-second penalty. A mistake from Fernando Alonso, which is a rare one. It's really rare to see a Fernando Alonso mistake. Of course, Fernando makes that mistake also towards the end of the race where he spins off. Really an off day for Fernando Alonso. We don't often see him make mistakes, and he made 2 today. And that car wasn't too great. He got that car into a fairly good position in qualifying, around about 7th place. Probably the best he could have got at the end of that weekend in qualifying. But in that race, it's really struggled. Was in and around with the Alpines and stuff. Obviously, that battle with Esteban Ocon. So he really did struggle. And Fernando Alonso, for his standard, had a really poor weekend. Probably the worst weekend this year for Fernando Alonso, because of course there's been races like Monza where the car's just generally been slow, but Alonso's just still extracted the most he could at that weekend. But this weekend, being in 7th place, gets some good points in, and he makes those mistakes, and it's really rare to see for Fernando Alonso, and it's strange to actually say Fernando Alonso making mistakes because you don't often see it, do you? The last mistake really was the one in the sprint in Belgium when he went off into the gravel. Didn't even hit the barrier, which is really lucky. But before that, when was Fernando Alonso really making a mistake? So it's a strange one. It's weird. but Fernando would be back at it at Suzuka. And of course, the kind of key incident in this race was Esteban Ocon retiring just outside of the pit exit. I was kind of when I was watching it, I was thinking, are they going to close the pit lane just because he's so far near the pit exit that it could be quite dangerous for drivers coming out of the pits? But of course, they didn't. And Ocon was driving at such a great race as well, up in P6. Having that battle with Fernando Alonso, which was really, really good. And Alpine were just in general on for a really, really good race. And then they have that retirement in typical Renault Alpine fashion. And that causes the virtual safety car. And the Ferraris decide to stay out. So does Lando Norris. And the Mercedes, well, they race winners. They want to win races. And they saw that the best chance for them to win the race is in Singapore. And the virtual safety car was a key for them to pit and have a go. And well, they did have a go, didn't they? Russell said before the race they have a fresh set of medium compound tyres, and they used that to their advantage, able to pit on those tyres. Lewis had to stop a little bit, had to wait for George to get out of the box, of course, because they were really close together when they was pitting. So Lewis was a little bit further back, and it just meant it was just time for them to charge. It was like the lion versus the deer, the predator versus the prey, and the Mercedes obviously being the predator, and the Norris and Leclerc, Sainz, all being the prey. So it was just attack. 2 seconds, they've just taken 2 seconds, 2 seconds, 2 seconds every single lap, and 2 seconds is enough to pass around Singapore, as in the Delta time. And they were just chomping down the times, and it was a matter of time before they did catch Leclerc. They passed Leclerc with quite ease. And then it was getting up to Norris, and I don't know if Russell's tyres just, as soon as he got up to Norris, he had that little moment in lap 59 where he tried to pass Lando Norris, and Lando Norris, to be fair to him, defended really, really well on really old, hard tyres. But I think Russell took a lot out of those tyres, just trying to catch. He was just burning those tyres up, and I think he got to a point where he just couldn't get that little difference out of those medium tyres anymore. But Lewis, on the other hand, was able to catch George Russell on those tyres, and I think Lewis was able to bring those tyres into life much better with his great experience and him being generally better on his tyre wear than someone like George Russell was able to slowly bring those tyres into action, and was really quick, and was, for me, really was probably quicker than Russell on those tyres. Was able to catch Russell by 5 seconds when they pitted on the same time. Of course, he's going to have the slipstream, but it's still dirty air, etc., etc. And Russell really did struggle to pass Lando. Of course, Lando had the DRS. Sainz really managed that DRS so well, I have to say. Obviously, it did go ahead, and that's where Russell had that move on Norris. But then I think Sainz realised that he needs to give Norris the DRS. In the end, George Russell ends it in the barrier, clips the wall as Norris clips the wall as well. But obviously, Russell does it a little bit harder, and well, he ruins his race and ruins the podium. And in the end, it was worth it for Mercedes to try that different strategy, to do something different, and it made a great race from it. It really made a good race turn into a great race. And fair play to Mercedes. And of course, in the end, Sainz won the race, followed by Lando Norris and Lewis Hamilton, which is a great podium, by the way. It's nice to hear the Italian national anthem on the podium as well, and the Spanish national anthem. We had a lot of the Austrian and the Dutch national anthem this season, so it's nice to kind of change it up. And it's nice for it to be a Ferrari win as well. But with Carlos Sainz, I really want to talk about Carlos Sainz and how great of a driver he's been this season, especially the last couple of races. He's really grabbed a hold of that Ferrari, and he's just driving the wheels of that car. He's beaten Leclerc, he's been quicker than Leclerc over the last couple of races, and he's really in this groove at the moment, Carlos Sainz, that you could argue he's the fastest Ferrari driver. He's so quick, so consistent. I think the raw speed of Charles Leclerc is quicker than Carlos Sainz, but that consistency, that I think, for me, Sainz has a better racing brain than Charles Leclerc, with that bit more experience from Carlos Sainz, really does help him. With him able to manage that gap to Norris when the Russell and Lewis were all trying to catch him, it was really smart, and really drove a really smart race. And honestly, that was the best race Carlos Sainz has ever driven. That was his best race by far. The perfect race. He could have not done that race any better. How he drove that race was absolutely perfect. He didn't put a foot wrong. Didn't make any mistakes in the track like Singapore with the heat and the physicality, the mental toughness, and also be mentally strong on the track and be really smart with his moves. Really impressed by Carlos Sainz, and he's really impressed me in the last couple of races. Obviously, that podium in Monza does help as well, but he's really impressed me, Carlos Sainz, and he's proven to be one of those top drivers in the sport. And Carlos Sainz is really becoming a top driver, and it's great to see him challenging with Charles Leclerc. But with Charles Leclerc, it was really that pit stop that kind of ruined his race. But even before that, Carlos Sainz had the pace over him the whole race. But if you're Charles Leclerc, surely this is mentally just, you could probably say mentally draining, because you got a guy on top of you. You think that Carlos Sainz is my second driver and things like that. I'm the quickest guy here. But when you got a guy challenging you, and surely there's a point where Leclerc is going, how do I beat this guy? This guy's so consistent. This guy's so fast. And surely he has something in his head, but going, how do I get around that? How do I get around that sort of challenge? Because of course, Charles Leclerc hasn't really had that challenge before. When he was teammates with Ericsson and Vettel, he was faster than them. He was clearly faster than them. And with Sainz, there's a guy there who's hungry, who has that mental mind, and he's just a pure, fast, intelligent racing driver. And if you're Charles Leclerc, you should be sitting there with questions and thinking, what do I do? What do I do to beat this guy? And especially with Carlos Sainz on this run, how do you beat that? How do you beat that when Carlos Sainz is on this roll at the moment? And he's moving right now to be the Ferrari man. He should be the first choice for Ferrari. He is the top guy at Ferrari, and that's the guy they should be focusing around. And when they do bring upgrades in, you should give it to Carlos Sainz, because he's the guy that's proving his worth right now. And on to Lewis Hamilton, who finished third place, picking up his fifth podium this season. I think he drove a good race. Of course, had a really good start. Got ahead of Norris, and obviously had to run wide with George Russell. Rightfully so, had to give that place back to Russell. He wasn't ahead of Russell at any point. But for me, I don't understand why he had to give the place back to Lando Norris as well. I can understand it to a certain extent, where he was maybe not committed. But, I think we've seen, look at the start of the season in Spain with George Russell, when he runs off about at the start, takes the escape road, and gains a position from it. That's not too similar. That is really similar to the incident with Lewis, but Lewis has to give his positions back. So consistency there. So the consistency there is confusing. But I can understand it to a certain extent. But I don't think Lewis should have given that position back to Norris. I don't think that was. I think the FIA was obviously looking to that, but I just don't think there was any need for him to give the position back. I don't think he had any right to do that. Maybe that comes from a biased point of view with the Lewis haps above me. But yeah, I don't see it. And of course, George Russell drove a really good race, almost a perfect race, but fine margins again, and another mistake from George Russell, and he keeps doing it. And it's like Charles Leclerc, they're both really quick drivers, really quick. But the thing that separates them from their teammates, Leclerc, Lewis Hamilton, is just that consistency. And George can't be making those mistakes when you have Lewis Hamilton as your teammate. And those sort of situations, if you're in a championship battle and you're making those mistakes, you're just losing the championship. You're literally just giving Lewis or Max just a chance to win the championship. And these 3 points, it's just a minor mistake. And I fail to feel sorry for George Russell, because that's his own mistake. It's not like Yuki, where he gets that puncher unluckily at the start of the race and he has to retire. I can understand that, or Ocon's retirement. But I don't feel sorry for Russell, because it's again another mistake. It's like Canada at the start of the season as well, when he was just slightly overdriving that car and he gets on that curb into the barrier, and that effectively ends his race. He's a long way off Lewis now in the points. He's running about 70 points off, which is a lot of points when you're comparing to a teammate. He's really upset. You can tell he's really upset how much that does affect him, but he can't let that moment affect him. He can't let the emotions get the better of him, because he's got to come back stronger. He's got to forget about that, move on, because Suzuka is literally right around the corner. So he needs to put his chin up and just learn from those mistakes. And that sort of that mistake he made was very similar to Nick de Vries's mistake in Baku when he clipped the wall, and then he retired. So a rookie mistake, you can kind of say. And overall, he drove a really good race. He was really competitive. He was like, I just want to go for this win, and he wanted to do anything to have that chance to win. And he was fast. He'd been fast all weekend. Out-qualified Lewis. Was better than Lewis all weekend. But just those minor little things, millimeters of stuff that happens is the difference. Mercedes were on for 15 and 12 points. So that is a really good load of points for Mercedes to take, with Red Bull all the way down. And of course, Aston Martin not being too great in this race as well, taking a load of points away from Aston Martin and Red Bull. It's one of those where it's quite gutting if you're Mercedes. Max Verstappen, for me, drove a decent race as well. Obviously, starting P11, finished in P5. Had a lot of overtaking to do. That kind of battle with Magnussen trying to get past him, which was really, really fun. And of course, we know Magnussen's going to defend that position so hard. But I think Max really enjoyed that one a little bit. Coming through the field, hasn't really done that much. Jobs like overtaking and things like that. So I think it's a race that he would very much have enjoyed in some sort of way. Obviously not being on the top step of the podium, but it's definitely a race that he would kind of come out of and go, do you know what, that's the maximum I could have got out of the car today, a P5, and you take that and you move on to the next race in Japan, where that car will be so dominant, because the track characteristics at Suzuka, it just screams Red Bull. And with Perez as well, finishing P8, not so impressed with Perez. I think he could have been a lot higher, maybe struggled with traffic, and wasn't as quick as Verstappen in that race. But yeah, he had front wing damage as well. I think that was probably from the earlier incident with Yuki Tsunoda. I didn't notice that till they didn't pit on the hards when they was towards the front. So he was struggling with that as well. But I wasn't too impressed with Perez. But a P8, again, I think he could have got a P6 maybe. And the fact that he finished behind Oscar Piastri, who started way behind him, is not a great thing, is it? The Alpines drove a really good race. I did say that they would go well around here, obviously less straights, and they did. Ocon was in P6, battling with Fernando Alonso, and had that retirement. Gasly finished 6th in the end as well, with Alonso's mistake, and etc, etc. So in the end, if you're Alpine, you're looking at and going, well, that could have been a P6 and a P7 in the end. So some massive points lost for Alpine. And again, Alpine, when they're in those good positions, they just seem to just chuck it away, and just those opportunities, they just get rid of those opportunities. So yeah, it's unlucky. It's unlucky for Alpine, well, for those drivers, should I say? But yeah, they both drove good races, and I think overall Ocon shouldn't be too gutted, because you look at it and go, well, yeah, there's positives to take out of that, but obviously there was positives, but there was no result to show that positive. Piastri, I was really impressed with, considering he had no upgrades this weekend. Norris had the upgraded package of that McLaren. Piastri didn't. Able to finish P7. Obviously starting in 17th as well due to Lance Stroll's crash. He couldn't complete the lap. He was really good. I was really impressed with Piastri, and showing again his talent and how good he is. And a special mention to Liam Lawson, probably behind Carlos Sainz. I think I'd say Carlos Sainz is my driver of the day, but Lawson is definitely up there in my top 3. Really good race, finishing in the points, of course. And of course, Yuki Tsunoda didn't get anywhere in the race. He only did like half a lap, and again, that pressure's on him to go and score the points in the track that he's never raced at. And I think he did fairly well. And if he does not get that AlphaTauri seat, I'll be so shocked. The fact that he's brought points home for that team, and I do expect him to be in that seat next season with Daniel Ricciardo. I've done a video on that, so do check the channel for that video. But again, showing his talent, and really am impressed by Liam Lawson, and not just his driving, but the way he brings himself, the way he talks, his character, I really do like that. And it's someone that I definitely need to see in Formula One. And he'll be in Formula One for a really long time. He's one of those drivers. And having watched him in Formula 2, he was there with Piastri and Zhou. And he does deserve to be there. And he wins races. He's a really quick guy. And for me, it's a shock that he's not even on the grid in the first place coming into 2023. I think he did deserve the seat at the end of the season, coming into the season. But yeah, Lawson impressing again. Kevin Magnussen finishing P10 as well. They obviously qualified really well, did the Haas. And normally they qualify really well with Hulkenberg. And then they just slip away because those tyres just melt. And that didn't really happen. I guess in terms of Hulkenberg it did. And I guess the tyres probably did melt away. But track position is so good around Singapore. And perhaps the track really does benefit their car. Because it's basically a Ferrari but with just Haas on it. It has a lot of Ferrari characteristics, so you do kind of expect them to do well around there. So it's nice to see Haas in the points. I'm really kind of happy to see Haas there, considering they've been in and around those positions before and they just dropped off. So it's really nice to see that from Haas. I've wanted to be Kevin Magnussen as well. And that's going to be a real confidence boost for Magnussen. Hasn't had the greatest of years this year compared to last year. Hulkenberg's been, in my opinion, better than Magnussen this season. Being more consistent, being faster. So for Magnussen, that's a bit of confidence that you can kind of take into the end of the season. That those points, those confidence is like, right, okay, I can score points if I need to. But overall, I think probably the rest of the season, I think you can argue. I think Zandvoort was a really good race. Monza was a good race with the fight at the front. Australia at the start of the season as well was a great race as well. So Singapore definitely up there. And kind of a proof that you don't need overtaking to have a great race, because there wasn't much overtakes, but there's still excitement, there's still a lot of tension. New bit to the track, the new Sector 3 was a positive into this weekend. There's a bit more opportunities, a bit more excitement. I think the cars were able to flow a lot better. The only thing is, do we have DRS there? I know that the drivers wanted the DRS there, but the teams, some of the teams didn't want it there, and they didn't have it in the end. I don't know if it's something to do with safety or whatever, or some teams not wanting it because it doesn't benefit them or whatever. But I think that was a really positive change. Maybe they are staying next season, because that will open up a bit more overtaking, maybe, and more opportunities. But obviously, because there's opportunities doesn't mean there is going to be overtakes. But of course, we head into Japan next. Really excited for that. Suzuka is one of my favourite circuits. Just to see the cars go around Suzuka, it's just so
beautiful. And it's going to be an early one. This one is. It's going to be 6 a.m. And for sure I'll be up for that one. But I'm going to set my alarm really early. I'm going to be really tired throughout the whole day. Again, I just want to say thank you guys for watching. Like, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one at Suzuka. Thank you.